Thursday, you guys. We got some fun stuff coming your way. We got gymnastics day today. It's going to be a good day. So I'm super pumped and super excited. So what we got going on today for you guys? We got some inchworm knee to nose for 3 to 5, into a forearm plank for 15 to 30 seconds, prone shoulder raise for 6 to 10 alternating reps with a 1 to 3 second pause per side, forearm plank for 20 seconds with arm reach or toe point. So it's your call what you want to work on, or you can just work on another forearm plank, either one. But I'll walk you guys through those options for that second piece. Into 10 to 20 alternating plank leans. 2 to 3 rounds there is a nice little primer. We're then going to move into the next phase, which is going to move into our seated pike hold for 10 to 20 seconds per side. Tuck hollow with extension for 20 seconds. Dumbbell pullover for 10 to 20 reps at a 3-second eccentric. Laying L sit hold, which will use that dumbbell or a couch or a chair, whatever, as an anchor for 15 to 30 seconds. We'll hit that for 2 to 3 rounds, warming up that hollow, that good compression through the hips. And then we're going to move back up into the upper body. We're going to work on some plank shoulder touches for 10 to 20 alternating reps. Floor pike hold for 15 to 30 seconds, and a forearm plank to dolphin for 3 to 5 at 5-second holds. 2 to 3 rounds through that, and that's going to get you primed and ready for your next phase of work, which is going to be an on-the-minute for 10 minutes. So that's 5 rounds of work. Minute number 1, you are going to choose either the Renegade Row or the bent row with the dumbbell, or empty hand Renegade Row as well is always an option. But we'll walk you through that. You're going to do 5 per side. Minute number 2, you're going to do an L sit hold or variation of L sit hold, and your goal is to accumulate max amount of time over the 5 rounds. So you're going to use that minute to bank as much time in that L sit as you can, rest as you need to, and then you're going to bank that time throughout the 5 rounds of work. Repeat, take it down, 10 minutes of work, a lot of fun little accessory core work. It's going to be a good gymnastics day, you guys. Let's warm up and get ready to go. Let's get those feet under those hips. We'll take the arms big and tall up overhead. We're going to clasp our fingers and press up, and we're going to reach to one side. We're going to come back to center and reach to the other side. Come back up. We're going to reach straight ahead, rounding out that upper back a little bit, spacing out those scapula, and then we're going to open up gently into that T. We'll turn those arms in, turn them out, turn them in, turn them out, and turn them in, and turn them out. Big reach overhead. We're going to reach to one side. We're going to come back through, reach to the other side. We're going to come back up. We're going to bring those hands all the way to the floor, touching those toes. Walk up those shins, come down, frame a foot. We'll step back into our lizard. We're going to take that inside hand all the way up to the sky. Bend at the elbow, reaching, pulling back with the arm. Reaching, pulling back with the arm, reaching, and pulling back with the arm. Reach up. I'm going to rotate forearm to the floor, come back up, and plant that hand, and step back into our down dog. From here, we're just going to settle in, set those shoulders. We'll come back into that plank as we step that other foot up. Nice and square in those hips. Inside hand is going to reach up. I'm going to bend at the 90. Reach straight ahead, pull back, straight ahead, pull back, straight ahead, pull back, and we'll reach up. Rotate the forearm to the floor if you can. We'll come back up, plant the hand, and step back into that down dog. And in this down dog, setting those shoulders, just going to walk the heels a couple times, back and forth, just waking things up, making sure things feel pretty good. Feeling okay, and we'll come back into our plank. Tiptoe those feet all the way up. And we'll roll ourselves up. Big stretch. Big reach. And reach. Come back down. Woo. Let's get you fired up and ready to go. If you'd like to pause the video, take down some more gentle warm-up for yourself, maybe some wrist work, cat-cows, thread the needles, who knows, whatever else you need for yourself, please do so. Pause that video, come along with me for that first phase of our warm-up. All right, so our first phase of warm-up is going to focus primarily on the core and the upper body. We're going to start with our inchworm knee to nose. So this is kind of a fun one, But keep in mind, if the inchworm is really, really challenging on the hands and or just the up and down portion, you can do a plank knee to nose variation as well and just go 3 to 5 per side of that knee to nose. All right, so keep that in mind as we're going through this. But if the inchworm is okay, we're gonna stand nice and tall, feet are together, we're gonna pull the hips back, try to keep the legs as straight as we can. But if you need to bend the knees, you can. But we wanna touch on those hamstrings a bit. We're gonna walk the hands out, pressing into those shoulders in that nice plank. And we're gonna pull the knee to the nose, trying to keep those hips low as we pull that knee up under the body, nice and smooth. We're gonna walk our hands back in, stand tall. If you like, you can take your hands up overhead or not, it's up to you. The big thing here with this inchworm, we want to walk our hands out nice and strong. And before we start bringing the knee to nose, we want to make sure we've established that plank. When we do bring the knee in, again, pressing through the shoulders the entire time and keeping those hips relatively low as we do that knee compression or that hip compression in that position. From there, we're going to move into our forearm plank. And for the first one, we're just going to focus on that forearm plank. So, 2 options for this. Tabletop is a great way to start. It allows you to get yourself set up with that elbow underneath of the shoulder. We're going to step back into our plank. We're going to press the shoulders up, pull the ribs and hips in, and hold that position strong. Now, if you need to, you can always start here and then lower the knees down while maintaining that good hollow position. Or you can do the entire knee plank from here, the forearm plank from the knees. Just as a shout out for that again, I've said this before in previous videos, but when I do that and I'm holding that plank from my toes and I lower my knees, I feel no change of engagement through here. So this is firing crazy amounts. The only thing that kind of lessens is the shoulder stress. So keep that in mind. If you do have to drop those knees down, that's okay. All right, but it's not going to make it easier on your core. Your core is going to be working just as hard as we hold that hollow, but it will take some pressure off that shoulder joint. Our next exercise after the forearm plank, prone shoulder raise. So we're going to get onto our stomach. Hands are going to be out to the front, toes together. I'm going to squeeze them together and press them into the floor, pulling my ribs and hips in so I get that little hollow position. Press my armpits down and my palms down. I'm going to feel that engagement from pinky finger to pinky toe. Then I'm going to keep that engagement as I lift that arm up, keeping the armpit pointed to the floor. Come down, pressing that arm into the floor, and then lifting the other side. I'll come back down, reset, and lift again. What we want to focus our attention on there is maintaining this good hollow position through the midline, pulling those ribs and hips in as we lift. It's very easy to lose that as we go to lift the arm. So we want to make sure we're focusing on pulling the ribs and hips in. So don't sacrifice that position for height in the arm. Just lift the arm to where you can and then bring it down to end range. We have 6 to 10 alternating reps of that with a 1 to 3 second hold. Focus on that quality, and if you need to, reset the body position in between your reps. Forearm plank with arm reach or toe points. We have 2 choices here. You have 20 seconds to work on either one. Or the forearm plank again. So the forearm plank again, elbow under shoulder, we step ourselves back into our plank, pull the ribs in, press the shoulders. Now with the arm reach, I'm going to keep myself tight, I'm going to shift my weight a bit, and then I'm going to reach with my arm, keeping my body square to the floor, settle in, keeping my body square to the floor. So I'm not turning it into a side plank as I lift my arm up off the ground. If you're like, no Dave, I just started lifting my toes off the ground and making that a little harder. We can do that. So we get set up in that forearm plank, we point a toe, pull it back down. Point a toe, point it down. Point a toe, and back. And we'll just alternate that for 20 seconds. Nice and easy, nice and smooth. So you're not going to worry about going fast, it's just feel that lack of balance because you've just taken away a point of balance, put it back down. Take it away, put it in, and just alternating back and forth. Last but not least, we have our plank lean. We're going to use another variation of this later on, in our work set. So we're gonna get ourselves set up in that good plank. Ribs in, pressing the shoulders up. Keeping the shoulders over the hands, we're gonna shift our weight over, keeping our shoulders over our hands the whole time, and keeping that shoulder active. So we're always pressing through the floor into that upper back, coming back to center. You can play around with that, taking it as far over as you feel comfortable, making sure that we're listening to our wrists and our shoulders and not going beyond, especially making sure we're not going beyond where our elbow bends. We want to keep those arms locked out and straight. Now, quick little recap for you guys. We have an inchworm knee to nose for 3 to 5 reps, forearm plank for 15 to 30 seconds, prone shoulder raise, 6 to 10 alternating at a 1 to 3 second hold, forearm plank for 20 seconds with the addition of the arm reach or toe point or just the plank, plank lean for 10 to 20 alternating reps, 2 to 3 rounds. Have some fun with this work set, you guys. It's going to heat the body up. Really, it's a ton of shoulder and core work. So play with it, have fun with it, and if you need to, rest as necessary. Pause the video, take it down, come back and join me. We're going to work on a little bit of compression and have some fun with some hamstrings. All right. Our next phase is going to start seated. And I'm going to turn profile so you guys can see. We're going to work on a seated pike hold. So the seated pike hold, we start in this nice tall position. I am going to walk myself down towards my toes. Now, if I was to try and do this at this position, I personally would not be able to lift my leg. So the further you go down your legs, the harder it's going to be to activate and get that lift. So most people are pretty comfortable around their knees, but you can kind of play around with wherever you need to be. All right, so from here, we're keeping that nice, strong, straight leg, and we're going to work on lifting a leg, activating through that quad, holding that position for 10 to 20 seconds, and then lower, keeping that leg straight. We switch over, and you're going to hold 10 to 20 seconds per side. Now, if you can do both, you're more than welcome to do both for a 10 to 20 second hold, but keep in mind we want to squeeze the toes together, and again, we're still activating through that quad and hip. So 10 to 20 seconds per side, or 10 to 20 with both legs coming up. Our next exercise puts us on the floor into a nice laying position. So I'm going to get set up laying down. I'm going to pull my ribs and hips together, pulling in to this hollow as I pull my shoulders and my knees together. I get a nice good compression through my midsection, and I'm going to try and maintain this as then I extend my legs towards my face, and then I'm going to pull my hip or my heels back to my hips. I extend, working on that compression, and then I pull my heels back down. I'm going to work at about that speed, so I don't need to worry about reps in that 20 seconds. I want to worry about the compression and that good straightening of the legs, and then coming back in. You may not be able to get the legs straight. That's okay. Keep working to that edge and tapping into those hamstrings. Our next exercise, we lay on the floor with the dumbbell, and then we rock a little bit of pullovers. So our next exercise is a really nice pec and overhead position kind of exercise. So we're going to lay on our back. Feet are going to be flat, fingers just outside our heels. So just like a bridge. The only difference is though I'm going to pull my ribs and hips in so my low back is in contact with the floor. I'm going to take hold of the dumbbell by the top bell, and I'm going to hold it above my chest with my elbows slightly bent and pointing outwards. I'm holding this position, and I'm going to press into that dumbbell as I lower the dumbbell overhead, keeping the elbows soft and keeping that contact with the low back until that dumbbell touches, and then I pull that dumbbell back over my chest. I'm pressing into that dumbbell as I lower to maintain control so it doesn't just fall, all right? And then we come back overhead. If you have a little bit more range, you can hold it by both bells. Still, elbows slightly out and soft. We come back, same kind of focus, pressing into that dumbbell to maintain control. When it touches, we come back over the chest and repeat. So it's a nice activator, really nice for pushing into that bar, all right? Imagine yourself doing, a pull-up, toe to bar, working on those levers, but we're pressing into that bar, or we're pressing into the dumbbell. Our next exercise can use the same dumbbell overhead, or we can use a couch, a chair, just something to anchor our arms on. I'm going to move down a little bit so I can take hold of the bells with both hands with straight arms above my head. I'm going to get my arms straight, my legs straight, and I'm going to bring my feet back up, together, knees and toes. I'm going to pull my ribs in so my low back touches the floor. I'm going to pull my knees into a little tuck, and then I'm going to extend my legs straight up into my L position. So I'm squeezing my ribs and hips in. I'm not trying to lift my hips and my toes towards the floor, but I am actively pressing into the dumbbell so my armpits are facing towards the ceiling, and I'm actively pulling my ribs and hips in. So I'm going to feel some engagement there. All right? Holding those legs straight and strong, toes together, and we're going to hold that for 15 to 30 seconds in that laying L-sit hold. So activating, thinking about being in that perfect L-sit hanging from a bar or hanging from something, tree branch, whatever it happens to be. But we're embodying that nice, solid L. The key too is again keeping that engagement through our ribs and hips, making sure we're pulling into that little hollow, and that's going to change the feel of that movement. As a quick recap, we have a seated pike hold, 10 to 20 seconds per side, or both at the same time. Tuck hollow with extension for 20 seconds. Dumbbell pullover, 10 to 20 reps with a 3-second eccentric, and a laying L-sit hold for 15 to 30 seconds. 2 to 3 rounds of that, take it through. It's good compression work. It's gonna work you pretty hard. And we're gonna move into the next phase where we're gonna go slightly overhead. Our next phase of warm-up is gonna focus more again on our planks and going into our handstand positions. So I'm gonna get myself into my plank. My toes are together. I pull my ribs in, press my shoulders to the sky, and I'm gonna embody that lean. So I'm gonna lean myself over to my hand. I'm gonna take my hand up and touch my shoulder. And then I can come back through center, pressing through the arms, lean, touch. So we're gonna touch the same side, same hand today, working on that control. To make this harder does not mean we go faster. To make this harder means we should go slower. So the longer we have that hand in contact with the shoulder and off the floor, the more stability we need to require and work on. We want to try and keep our shoulders square to the floor and watch out for opening to the side, into that kind of side plank position that we talked about earlier in that forearm plank with arm reach. So we want to make sure our shoulders and chest stay square to the floor. After that, we're going to move into our floor pike hold. So my hands in that tabletop are going to be just outside my shoulders, underneath, nice and solid, wide fingers. So I grip the floor hard, press the shoulders up, ribs and hips pull in, toes are curled under, and now keeping my shoulders over my hands, I'm going to lift my hips up over my shoulders, pressing my shoulders to my ears, focusing on that engagement through that core, pressing, 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 and embodying that handstand with that foot assist. It's going to really help and build that handstand ability as we create all the tension in the body necessary to be up against the wall and or in the middle of the floor. Our next exercise is our forearm plank to dolphin. Challenging exercise. We're going to open up those triceps and those lats a little bit, so ease into this one slow. Forearms are going to come onto the floor, elbow under the shoulder, pressing through to that nice forearm plank position. I get set up in my forearm plank, and now from here, I'm going to push back into my armpits and my lats, trying to push my chest to my thighs. My knees are going to soften. You probably saw my feet come in a few steps, and that's okay. And then we come back into our forearm plank. Very similar to our plank to down dog. Same action as we pull our hips back up and our chest towards our thighs. Our shoulders are going to roll away from each other. The only difference is we're using that in a forearm position. So it'll feel slightly different. We want to make sure we have a neck and we're not shrugging into this position. So again, just a quick little recap on this one. We're set up in that forearm plank, nice and tight, ribs and hips press in, I pull back and up, armpits are towards my toes,
I soften my knees to get that good angle, and I press back towards my thighs. Then I can step back into my plank and work back into the next rep. If you need to come out of that and give yourself a little cat-cow, a little break in between reps, please do so. You got 3 to 5 with 5-second holds per position. So take some time there. It's going to really work on opening up the lats and the triceps. Don't worry about your range. Just take it to where you can maintain comfort in your position. Quick little recap for that last little piece before the workout. Plank shoulder touch, 10 to 20 alternating. Floor pike hold for 15 to 30 seconds. Forearm plank with 2 dolphin, 3 to 5 reps at 5-second holds. 2 to 3 rounds of that piece. It's going to finalize our work set, get you guys fired up. And then we're going to move into our work set, which is a 10-minute on the minute. Welcome to the workout. On the minute, 10 minutes, 5 rounds. So it's 5 rounds of work, which equals 10 minutes. Minute number 1, you have a choice. You're going to work on a bent row for 5 aside or a renegade row for 5 aside. Minute number 2, you're going to work on an L-sit hold to accumulate max time. And I'm going to show you a few different ways to do such L-sit hold to build your time in those positions. But first things first, let's talk about the bent row. I have a bench here. I'm going to put my knee up on that bench. I take hold of my dumbbell. My hand is going to go underneath of my shoulder. I'm going to get myself set up and strong. I'm going to let that shoulder kind of come down a bit. And I'm going to engage through that upper back, pulling the shoulder to set, and then pulling that dumbbell into my rib, and then coming back down and letting that shoulder kind of come down as well. Pulling back, pulling into that rib, coming down, and letting the shoulder come down. I'm not on a tempo, but I also don't want to let that shoulder fall or start using momentum and jerking the dumbbell around. We want to make sure we're controlling that movement. 5 per side isn't too bad in terms of your minute, so you should have some time at the end. So you can play around with some different loading here, and if you feel like you need to or want to and you have access to different dumbbells, you can change your weight throughout the work set. Just make sure you can get those 5 per side in that minute. Now if you don't want to do a bent row, you can work on that renegade row. And I'm going to show you 2 variations, with load or without. The first one I'm going to show you is without, and I'm going to go to the side. My hands are in my plank position. My feet are going to go a little wider, about squat stance to a straddle. I'm going to pull my ribs in, and I can work on my unweighted renegade row by pulling that hand into my hip. So my elbow is nice and stacked like a row, and then I come down. I pull that elbow in on the other side, come down. Shift my weight a bit, pull in, come down. Shift my weight, pull in, and down. So I'm pulling that hand into my low rib just above my hip. Now if I was doing that with a dumbbell, same. I get that set position, hand on the dumbbell, other hand on the floor. I get myself set up in that good, slightly wider stance, tight through the plank, I shift, I pull to the rib, come down. I pull to the rib, come down. So I'm shifting on each rep, making sure that I'm not using momentum and rushing, but I want to make sure that I'm bracing on each row. Once I do 5, I'll put my knees down, switch sides, do 5 on the other side. They are challenging and they're tough, but they're a cool little variation to the row. If you don't want to do with load, you can do that unloaded option for yourself if you like. It's challenging, very similar to a shoulder touch, but just a slightly different sensation in the tricep and the side body. Minute number 2 consists of an L-sit hold, and I'm going to show you a couple different variations we can play with. Now the L-sit hold is very challenging, and if you have 2 dumbbells at home or 2 kind of raised yoga blocks, encyclopedias, if those things are still around, who knows, but something that's just going to give you a lift that you can press in on. You're going to get your hands right by your hips, so your hands are under your shoulders, toes are together. You're going to press yourself actively up, so your arms are locked out, your shoulders are down, and you're going to hold this position. So this is variation number 1, just holding this straight, active position, and then we'll come down. Banking as much time in that minute as you can. Variation number 2 stems from that same position, and we're going to lift the leg. You're going to hold. If you need to break, we lift another leg. And we're just going to continue to bank time alternating those legs as we need the break. Now our last variation is bringing everything up. So we press, we pull our ribs and hips in, we lift those feet up and squeeze the toes together, and we actively press through the dumbbells the entire time. Very, very challenging, all right? So if you're like, yeah, no, I like those first couple options better, that's fine. That's a great place to start. Another option, if you don't have anything to kind of press into, is a seated variation where we can work on what's called boat pose. So we can do a couple variations. We pull our knees in, fingers are kind of on the floor. I can work on pulling a knee in and lifting one foot. I can do both feet with a hand assist, and I can do no hand assist. So working on that tall body position, pulling my ribs, pulling my quads together, and holding this nice solid position. So we can work on boat pose as well instead of our L-sit hold to work on kind of similar positions. The only thing about the boat pose is we want to make sure we're not rounding out. We're sitting tall in our body position. So that's why if we need to, we can use our hand assist. And if we don't, and we can maintain, then you can start lifting those hands and going unassisted. So a couple of really cool options for that L-sit hold. Play with it, have some fun with it, work where you're at, what you have access to at home. Quick little recap on the workout, on the minute for 10 minutes. Minute number 1, bent row or renegade row for 5 aside. Minute number 2, L-sit hold, max accumulation of time over the 5 rounds with one of those variations I just showed you. Take your time with this one, you guys. Have tons of fun. It's challenging work, this gymnastic stuff, so I hope you guys enjoy it. Have some fun with it, and we'll see you very, very soon. As always, work for quality, enjoy, and have a great day. Bye.